Hey there, everybody, and welcome to this tarot guide. We are going to go through all 78 cards, and we are going to go in order. So I'm going to start with the major arcana, and we are in this video are going to cover some of the symbolism that most people miss on all of these cards. So that's what this video is going to be about. If y'all like this, then I might do another video where we actually cover the actual meaning of every single card, but wanted to point out some of the things that people miss on each card in this video. This is just going to be, this is not everything about every single card. So there's a million ways to interpret every single card, and you should probably know that. Also, probably what you see is best, right? So I'm a big believer with the tarot. We're going to start with the Fool here in just a second, that whatever jumps out at you first is going to be the most important thing. When I started reading tarot, probably the biggest lesson I learned, and I'll never forget this lesson, right, is I was reading for a lady, and I kept thinking about just the hair on the cards, right? And this lady was asking about making more money. And so the whole entire time I was looking at the hair on the cards, but I thought, oh, it was stupid because I just was like thinking about the hair. And, so I gave her a reading, and after she was like, oh, this is great because I've been thinking about becoming a hairdresser. And in that reading, I was literally thinking hairdresser the entire time because I kept focusing on the hair. So again, I think the biggest lesson I learned when I started reading is that you really have to pay attention to whatever you are paying attention to, whatever jumps out at you with the card. So as you all know, I'm big on imagery, and that would be like my biggest piece of advice is even on the Fool, if you're paying attention to something, if the color, if the red, like what, on his sleeves, like what does it make you think about? And that's always what I default to with my readings. As you know, I most of the time, and a lot of the times, I don't necessarily use the meaning of the card, the actual traditional meaning. I am giving the meaning that I feel. So that's what we're going to cover in this video. I do have a full tarot course if you want to support the channel, or if you just want to learn tarot more in depth. There's more information on that down below, but let's get into this. I want to do this as quickly as I possibly can. So we have the Fool, and with the Fool, the first card of the major arcana, I follow the Fool's journey. With the Fool's journey, we go from the Fool to the world, and we start all over again. One thing that always stands out to me in some of the most important imagery on the card is his tattered sleeves, which not a lot of people pay attention to. And so the tattered sleeves kind of represent the fact that the Fool has been on this journey before. He has gone from, a beginner to the world and accomplishing something before, and so he is really able to start this journey successfully even though he's at the beginning, and he just needs to know that. He also has this tiny little sack on his back, so he's about to go through this whole entire journey with just a tiny little sack, and it says that again, he is ready for the journey. He is more capable than he realizes. So while to the outside world what he's about to do might seem foolish, he actually has a lot of knowledge. He even has this feather in his cap right here. And the feather in the cap kind of says that he has a feather in his cap, right? Like it's a saying that we have for someone who knows a lot about a certain subject or who knows what they're about to do. So everything about him, like he should have more confidence than he does. He also has these ice-capped mountains in the background. And sometimes I feel with the Fool, and again, you might feel this in a reading, maybe you focus on those mountains. And it could say that he's hesitating on his journey. He isn't getting started on the journey that he needs to go on because he is frozen, like at the top of an ice-capped mountain. But he really needs to get started because he knows more than enough. And so I look at those are some of the things that really stand out to me. Of course, there's more, and we will cover it in the future. With the Magician, the most important thing to the Magician to me is the snake wrapped around his waist. The Magician is all about reinvention. Everything about the card itself says that he might need to take a different approach on his journey. Again, following the Fool's journey, the next step is the Magician, and the snake is the Ouroboros, which represents reinvention. He has the 4 ace versions of all the suits in front of him, and he might need to reinvent a tool that he is using on his journey. Of course, the Magician is as above, so below. He's manifesting something and pointing to the earth right here. And he even has this garden in front of him. And the garden also always stands out to me on the Magician because the garden is him focusing on joy, happiness, things that make him feel good so that he can manifest to a high degree. Next, we have the High Priestess, and of course, High Priestess is intuition. Kind of a couple things really stand out to me. Her crown right here kind of represents the fact that she sees the beginning, middle, and end of every situation before she enters into it. And those are 3 stages of the moon, but she might not be intuitively seeing the beginning, middle, and end. She might be kind of doing this more visualizing. So I kind of look at her as a card of also having the ability to manifest through visualization intuition, so that's something. She also has no roof over her head, and this has a very specific meaning, which is potential. Truthfully, the High Priestess is a card of potential. We, read her as intuition and all these other things, but she kind of represents the unlimited potential if she shuts herself out. There's a theory that she is shutting herself out from the world, that the world is to her back, and the reason for that is so that she can focus on her intuition and also like learning the secrets of what she's about to do as part of her journey. And so she's shutting the world out so she can figure out, the ins and outs of something and really go deep into a subject. So it's a great card for even learning. And I've seen the High Priestess come up in readings that I've done where someone is learning something, and this really says, learn the secrets, go a little bit deeper. Next, we have the Empress. A lot of people forget about the waterfall back here. And so the waterfall represents chaotic force. And if you were at the bottom of a waterfall, you would be getting tossed around all over the place. So the whole point of the waterfall is that she understands that there will always be chaos in her life, but she is choosing to focus on the abundance that she's been able to create in front of her. Sometimes I also feel that she kind of represents thinking more simply, or thinking that things don't always have to be so hard. She has that scepter that she's holding in her hand right here, and she can just wave that scepter in front of her and the wheat in front of her will grow. So I always look at her as like working, but not necessarily working hard. She is more about working smarter. Of course, she represents plenty of things, like I said, because I'm sure people are going to bring it up. There are millions of different things you can look at with every single card. We're just covering, what I see as the most important or the most interesting thing about each card. But of course, she's a card of self-care. Even her clothing is another interesting thing, is that her clothing is meant to look heavy because it is quality clothing. And so she is putting herself in a quality, she surrounds herself with quality, right? The minor arcana version of the Empress is the Nine of Pentacles, which is gratitude and luxuries. So it's all about creating an environment of success. We have the Emperor. The Emperor actually has water right here that is flowing down to the Empress. So the water behind him flows down to the Empress. He gives her energy, or gives her life, right? And so it kind of, the Emperor and the Empress can represent the balance between the masculine and the feminine. Some people, when they read, they say, if you get only the Emperor in the reading, maybe your feminine is out of balance. If you only get the Empress in your reading, maybe your masculine is out of balance, right? That's one way to do it because of the energy that's flowing behind them. He's also holding this Ankh in his hand, which is a symbol of rebirth. The thing that really always stands out to me is his armor is on underneath his cloak. It says that he is ready to go at a moment's notice. So whenever the Emperor comes up in a reading, it can say that the person that you're reading for is about to be presented an opportunity that they need to kind of jump on or take advantage of very quickly. So I always look at him as, kind of being ready for action. Next, we have the Hierophant. There are a couple things that stand out to me about the Hierophant. Well, there's a lot. The Hierophant is actually a deep image card, but he has these 3 stages to his crown right here. He's got these 3 stages to his staff right here. The 3 stages represent initiation, apprenticeship, and mastery. So he is teaching these 2 initiates in front of him, or initiating them into something. And so, of course, the Hierophant can be a card of education, but it's almost like he's teaching these 2 people in front of him the ways of whatever his belief system is. But I usually look at this card as the person I'm reading for is being, again, prepared for the next step, or they might be at one of those stages. They might be starting something, initiating something. Maybe they already have started something and they're in that in-between zone. And so if you're reading for a person and they're kind of like in that in-between zone, they might actually be in a little bit of a dip in their life, because sometimes when you're very close to success, you kind of go down first before you go up, right? And so I look at the Emperor as sometimes a motivational card, right? Sometimes you might be reading for a person, they might be thinking about moving on from a project, a business, an idea, or whatever it is, but really they shouldn't quit too soon because they're about to gain mastery over what they are learning or whatever they're doing. He's also blessing these 2 people in front of him. So I sometimes feel that the Hierophant can represent receiving blessings or getting blessings in your life. Next, sorry, I have to cover this card up. I forgot to color these in, but we have the Lovers. Again, look it up on Google if you can't imagine what this looks like, but there's 2 people right here, and they are being blessed, or they're kind of this right here is their higher self angel. And I look at the Lovers as number one, love. Traditionally this card was called the Choice and it was about making a choice in love. I think nowadays, and with modern tarot and also just from my own experience, that the Lovers can come up when we have a choice to make in life in general. I always say that the new choice or the new path is the correct answer with the Lovers. So I think sometimes this comes up when someone knows that they're going to move in a new direction and they just need to. They're actually being divinely guided, but they just can't, and sorry, I don't want to reveal too much. They just can't see it because there's clouds that are kind of blocking these people from seeing their higher self angel. So sometimes the Lovers can also kind of represent needing to tap into the higher self or needing to tap into your higher self angel. Next, of course, we have the Chariot. And the thing that always stands out to me is the city behind him. The Chariot is a card of victory, which is how most people read it, but really it's a card of setting yourself apart on your journey. He is in perfect alignment with what he wants. He has these stars in his canopy, these moons on his shoulders, and he has these two sphinxes, but the sphinxes are not attached to the Chariot. There are no reins attaching them to the Chariot. So because he has the stars up here and the moons right here, it kind of says that he knows that he is in alignment. The sphinxes represent the mysteries of the universe, and they know, and he knows because he is in alignment with what he wants, that the universe is going to bring him to where he needs to be, but it's probably away from where he has come from. So a lot of the times I feel that the Chariot is talking about needing to do something to become more unique or needing to follow your own path. Your success isn't going to be like anyone else's, and I think that's probably the most important thing with the Chariot, or one of. Next, we have the Strength card. Of course, the Strength card, just the lion and the lady. The lion really represents her inner voice or her inner critic or inner demons, and the lion's tail is between its legs. So I think what's important with the Strength card, and something people don't talk about, is that she has to do this every single day. She is, you don't just kind of like conquer your inner voice, right? There's always that little voice in the back of your head that's talking to you and telling you you can't do something or you can't overcome something. And so she is controlling what that voice is saying to her, and she's doing this every single day. So it's really a card of developing inner strength. I also think it's a card of showing off because who in the right mind would stick their hands in a lion's mouth? And the answer is nobody, of course. So she is getting that lion to submit to her, and she is getting her inner voice to, she's the one that's in control of it. So I think that this is really a card of developing strength by controlling your inner voice and accomplishing great things. You have the Hermit next, and the Hermit, he is an older gentleman, looks like a wizard, standing at the top of a mountain. He's been through a dark night of the soul. Everything, all the imagery about the Hermit represents wisdom. He has a gray cloak, wisdom. He's got the gray beard, wisdom, and he even has his inner light right here. The story of the Hermit is that he's actually frozen at the top of the mountain, but he could easily put that lantern down by his feet and he could set himself free. A lot of the times when people go into hermit mode, they don't want to come down from the mountain. Sometimes we go through something difficult like he has. We want to retreat to safety like he has at the top of the mountain, and then we don't want to come back to society because we feel like we're protecting ourselves, or maybe we find peace and quiet at the top of that mountain. But really the trick with the Hermit when you're reading for a person is that he needs to come down from the mountain and he needs to share everything that he has learned. He needs to shine his inner light. That is the thing that will set him free. He needs to be the change that he wants to see in the world, literally, to be cliche, right? And so I feel like that's what is most important about the Hermit. Next, one of my favorite cards, the Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune has a lot going on. We want to be at the center of the wheel, right in the middle there, because the wheel is always spinning. There's actually 3 separate wheels on the Wheel of Fortune, and they could all be spinning in different directions. Most people live their life in the washing machine of life, as I call it, where they're just getting tossed around all over the place. And when you're reading for a person, the Wheel of Fortune can represent a change in fortunes, but again, I believe it's something that the person that you're reading for has to do. So they have to double down on the good stuff, and they have to get rid of the challenges or take care of challenges right away. I always think of with the Wheel of Fortune, most people, they get a bill, they ignore it, right? It becomes a bigger bill. So the wheel is always spinning. So if you ignore things, things get worse and worse and worse, right? And instead of if you take care of things, then when the wheel comes around, you've taken care of it and you don't have to deal with it again. But when you do double down on the good stuff, again, you're just doubling down and you're constantly creating this like flywheel effect in your life. So that's why I always say that. We have this snake over here. The snake can represent your vibrations. It's kind of like a squiggly line, but snakes are also guardians of the portals, and so snakes represent our fears. And with the Wheel of Fortune, to take control of our destiny, we have to kind of like face our fears. It's like everything we want in life is probably on the other side of some sort of fear. It's like if you want love, you're probably afraid of love. If you want money, there might be certain money blocks about money. And so we have to face our fears with the Wheel of Fortune as well. We have the Justice card. Justice is pretty simple. It's cause and effect. He has these two gray pillars. Two gray pillars represent a neutral approach. So justice is really about being neutral and kind of taking a neutral perspective. Justice is also in the middle of the card, so in a neutral position. And so justice is literally about justice. Justice is sitting on this marble slab right here, this bench, right? And the marble slab kind of says, marble in the tarot kind of just represents being somewhere for a long time. So this person has a lot of experience, being neutral and kind of looking at things from both sides. And so that is justice. Next, we have the Hangman. The Hangman is hanging from the tree of knowledge and wisdom. So this tree back here is a tree of knowledge and wisdom, and he's sacrificed movement to gain knowledge and wisdom. So sometimes in life, again, we have to sacrifice movement to gain knowledge and wisdom, which he has done. The whole point of the Hangman is that his head is glowing, and he has gained the enlightenment necessary to move forward. So now it's time for him to get off the pole, right? Get off that tree, and it's time for him to get out into the world and to go experience new things. So, again, he doesn't have to be hanging here any longer. He can set himself free and move forward. The next step is the Death card, of course. The Death card is the death to everything you have known. We have the King right here is dead underneath the Death Rider, and the King being dead says that even kings die. So in life, even things that we think are going to last forever, sometimes they don't, or sometimes we change our beliefs that we thought we were going to believe forever. When I was 12 years old, I thought I'd be playing Pokemon for my whole entire life, right? I stopped playing Pokemon when I was like 13, never played it again. It died. It went through the death process for me. Also, important imagery here, the sun coming up between the two pillars on the moon card. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes I think that the sun coming up between those two pillars can represent kind of stepping into a sun period where you're stepping into a period of clarity. Technically, the moon comes up after the death card, so you could argue that the sun is setting on the death card and you're about to go into the underworld with the death card. But what I would say is he has this white rose on his banner on the death card, and the white rose on the banner represents the fact that, kind of represents the light at the end of the tunnel. It can say you're getting to the end of a transformation. We can make death happen faster as well, meaning the transformation. This lady, this Pope-looking guy, they are like begging for their life. They are not wanting to look at the transformation. The child is holding up some flowers to the Death Rider, so the child is the only one that's excited for the transformation, is the only one that's excited for a new beginning or a change. And so sometimes the Death card, that child, can represent needing to embrace your inner child, or needing to embrace the childlike energy of asking what's next. Or, children ask lots of questions like why, or what, or where are we going, or are we there yet, right? They have unlimited curiosity. And so sometimes we can create the transformation faster by, instead of holding on to something, like these people are not wanting to change, they're wanting to hold on to the status quo, we can ask questions and figure out what's next. Next, we have the Temperance card. Temperance is about alchemy, turning one thing into another. So one thing people miss usually is this path with this crown in the background. This is the path to glory, and this crown is like a crown that you would go get right now. So that we think of temperance, we think of patience and being temperate, right, and not rushing into things. But he could easily step onto that pathway there, and he could easily start his journey right now towards his crown. There's really nothing more for him to change. So is it traditional tarot to say this? No, but I'm not traditional, right? And what I would say here is sometimes I feel that really what Temperance is saying you've been patient enough, you've been trying to turn a situation around, but maybe now it's time to start the journey or just start working towards something. Next, we have another card that I'm going to have to try to cover up here. We have the Devil, and of course, the Devil can represent toxic energy or toxic vibes. This right here is the black box of Saturn, so there's plenty of conspiracy theories about it. You can Google black box of Saturn. I'll see you next year, right? Because there's a lot to learn about it. But what I would also say is that, the Devil just represents Saturn energy. We have these two people And they have, I'm going to paint the picture for you because I can't show chesticles on YouTube, but they have this chain that is meant to look very loose around their neck. You know, their chain hangs down to here. So the whole point of the devil is that they could easily change their habits and set themselves free. We also have the devil has these bat wings, and so it kind of represents like an energy vampire, and it can represent energy vampire energy. I also think the most interesting thing is the animal horns on these people's heads. The animal horns kind of represents their baser instincts or their root chakra energy. And so sometimes I think the devil is creative energy trying to be released. They need to take that root chakra energy, bring it up to their heads, and express it into the world. So sometimes I look at the devil as kind of being stuck to societal expectations or being afraid to release your wild side or whatever the case may be. And sometimes the solution, not always, but sometimes, is to be creative. Next is the big one, the Tower. Everybody's afraid of the Tower. Really, the Tower is not a bad card. It can represent a sudden change or a sudden upheaval, but these people are falling out of the Tower and they are being brought back down to reality. So the whole point of the Tower is they've built those walls up around them too high, and now they are coming crashing down to reality and seeing it for how it actually is. They've been trying to ignore reality, and usually when the Tower comes up in a person's reading, they need to face some sort of reality in their life. They kind of have a choice. This guy here, he's jumping headfirst out, right? He has seen that the Tower is on fire, and he's like, okay, this isn't working anymore. I know I need to make a change. And then this other person is like surprised. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe that this tower that's on fire is falling. So, a lot of the times, it can represent a choice between, having the Tower moment and having it be uncomfortable, or realizing that you haven't seen reality and you just need to change your reality, or you just need to come down to reality. We also have this lightning bolt here, which can represent like a flash of inspiration. So again, the Tower is not always a bad thing. Sometimes we can have a sudden insight or a sudden epiphany in life. We can realize that we've been doing things wrong all along, and we can just be going back to the drawing board. We can just be starting something over, starting something fresh. And so again, the Tower is not always bad. Sometimes the Tower can just represent a move as well. We have the Star card here, of course, and the Star card, there's this lady, she's pouring water. This right here is the pool of universal consciousness. Oops, right there. That was a little nip slip for you, YouTube. But we have this pool of universal consciousness. And so she is sending these ripples out into the pool of universal consciousness. She's telling the universe like what she wants. The Star comes up after the Tower, and it can represent that we are like healing from a Tower moment, or we are going through healing after a Tower moment. Something that really stands out to me is the water she's pouring onto the land. The water she's pouring onto the land is going out to the world. And so she is it basically says what's possible for one person is possible for everyone. There's also this bird here, and that bird is an ibis, and it represents the bird of knowledge. And the bird can represent getting a bird's eye view of whatever you're dealing with and putting things into perspective so that you can accomplish them. Next, we have the moon. The moon has a lot of imagery. The moon is part of the fool's journey. Nowhere on the moon does it say stop, right? Sometimes I feel people, and not picking on anyone here, I think people should read however the hell they want to read, right? It's like you can get a message from pretty much anything, right? But sometimes I just feel that people read it as if it's saying stop. But the moon has these mountains in the background, and the moon represents complete, kind of accomplishing something. The mountains can represent an obstacle, but mountains in the tarot really represent the mountains can represent achieving something. I always say, where do you get the best views? At the top of a mountain. So like, yes, you're going to be huffing and puffing and sweating on this journey, but when you reach the top, you are going to be very successful. You're going to feel a sense of achievement. The moon is about pushing through those times where we feel fear, anxiety, we feel like we're in an illusion, we're not sure what to do next. Everything about the moon is a warning to the fool to not get off his path. He has these two pillars in the background. The two pillars are, again, a warning to the fool that he might be buying into an illusion. He might see something over here. He might see something over here when he has a goal. He just needs to stick to the goal and not create another goal, right? Like, how many times have you been working towards something and then you decide to do something else, and then you decide to do something else, right? This says stick to the original plan. The moon is temporary. Moon comes up, then goes down, and the sun comes up. And so it says stick to the plan. We have this dog and the wolf, dog and the coyote, whichever you prefer. it kind of represents your wild side and your domestic side. And again, just like kind of like the devil, we need to sometimes mix the two things together. Sometimes maybe we're being too domestic, or sometimes we're being too wild, and we need to balance the energies out. We also have this lobster or crayfish, whichever you prefer, right here. The lobster represents our emotional armor, and the lobster, if you've ever seen a lobster on land, they really can't do much. So the lobster says sometimes we have to release our emotional armor so that we can move on land, so that we can move away from whatever we're in and we can find success. Next, of course, we have the sun. The sun represents the sun shining a light on you. So the sun can say that, it's a card of joy, happiness, bliss. I think the most important things that people miss on the sun card are the banner that the baby is carrying here. This banner is meant to represent something that is very heavy, and he is carrying it very easily. So it's not very much of a struggle for him to carry that banner. And the whole point is that the sun can represent ease, something that is coming easily to you, or something that you're able to do. We also have the white horse, and the white horse in tarot can represent assistance. So any of the white horses can represent receiving assistance in the tarot. We also have this wall, which people ask about a lot, and the wall represents the wall that we all put up against our inner child. So the wall can sometimes say we need to embrace our inner child, or we need to be playful or more playful. I always look at the energy in the astrology as well, and we are definitely in a time that is way too serious. So sometimes the sun will come up and it will say you need to be more playful, you need to be more lighthearted, you need to have more fun in your life. The different rays, by the way, around the sun represent a combination of the sun and the moon energy. So the sun can bring light to the illusions of the moon. If you've ever been outside on a full moon, then you know that it casts shadows, right? And then when the sun comes up, the shadows pretty much go away. And I feel sometimes with the sun that it can kind of represent seeing through the illusion. Next, we have the Judgment card. And the most important thing here is these people in these coffins. The Judgment card originally was really meant to represent old life, new life. These people, the coffins, represent their old life. Outside the coffin represents their new life, and they are being called into a new life. We think judgment, we think purpose, we think that we are being called to something greater, which is all true. But usually we have to leave everything from the past behind, and we have to move forward into the future. And of course, finally, rounding out the major arcana, we have the World card. The World card, sorry, I have to cover it up again. Use Google, use your imagination. But the World card kind of represents the final card in the major arcana. When we get to the World, if we follow the Fool's journey, we just start all over again as the Fool. But the World card is an accomplishment, or can represent accomplishing something great. And it's also a completion. She has these two wands here, and I look at the two wands as like, one wand is like the magician's wand. She has learned how to create worlds with her words, and the other one is more action. She also takes action on her words, so she mixes the two things together. She isn't just manifesting, just thinking about something, right? She's thinking about it and taking action at the same time. So that is the World card. Of course, she has Aquarius, Scorpio, Taurus, and Leo all around her card there, these 4 signs that you see here. But again, I look at her as just a card of accomplishment. So that is the major arcana. We are going to move on to just the cards now, and we're going to start with the Wands cards. We have the King of Wands, and the King of Wands is a card of foresight. The most important thing about the King of Wands is this little lizard right here. He has these salamanders on his cloak as well. Salamanders in the tarot represent protection from fire, so all the Wands cards except for the Queen have the salamanders on their cloak or on their card, and it just represents the fact that they are kind of like protected from risk. But he is like the true entrepreneur, the true visionary in the tarot, and he is even looking forward into the future. So that's how I look at the King of Wands. The Queen of Wands, again, she has no protection from fire. She's my card of learning as you go. She is trusting the sun, and she's following the sun. She has this sunflower right here, and so I look at her as following the sun. Probably the most interesting thing is the black cat. During the times of tarot, black cats were considered unlucky, and the whole point of the card is that she doesn't care what people think. So Queen of Wands, usually a really good card for just not paying attention, not worrying about what people think about you or what you're doing in your life. Next, we have the Knight of Wands, and the Knight of Wands has these 3 pyramids down here, which represent mysteries. The whole point of the Knight of Wands is that he's very spontaneous, and whenever I see those 3 pyramids, there's a million theories about how pyramids were built, right? But the Knight of Wands, I look at him as a true builder in the tarot. And to me, he kind of is willing to embrace the mystery. If he doesn't know how to do something, he learns about it, takes action on it. Again, the Wands cards are all about the actions that we take in life. I forgot to say that. But they're all about the actions and the desires we have. And he takes action by being spontaneous, by being willing to be spontaneous and find a way to do things. We have the Page of Wands next, and the Page of Wands is about following your enthusiasm. He's just very excited for a new beginning, and you can see he has this little feather in his cap, but it's like a tiny little feather. It's not like a big feather like we see on the Fool. The Fool's feather is super long. So he is at the beginning of his journey, and all he has is his excitement, his joy, his inner feelings, and that's what he follows to guide him on his journey. With the Ten of Wands, the Ten of Wands, of course, can represent burdens. Those wands are covering up his face, right? So he cannot see through those wands. And that's why sometimes I say with the Ten of Wands that you need to get rid of other people's burdens or other people's responsibilities, because you can't see the forest through the trees, right? He needs to kind of clear some energy out. The true story of the Ten of Wands is that he's about to reach his home, which is probably the most important thing on the Ten of Wands. And his home represents the fact that he is about to have a harvest. So he planted these 10 wands, and now he is about to put those burdens down and have a harvest. So I think the 10 of wands can sometimes say you're very close to achieving a goal. We have the 9 of wands here. Everybody knows him as the Wounded Warrior, and he has completed something like 8 times, or he's been through something a number of times, and now he's leaning on to this one last wand, and he is wounded, but he's not giving up. So of course it's a card of perseverance. I look at the 9 of wands, again, something interesting that I think of with the 9 of wands is throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. So sometimes I feel that he can be about needing to try different ways of doing things so that you can be successful. Next, we have the 8 of Wands, which is the arrow. Traditionally, this card was a card of the arrows of love. You're kind of shooting your arrows in a direction and telling the universe what you want. And sometimes, some of those arrows might get to where they're going sooner than others. But to me, the 8 of Wands is really a card of focus. It says when you focus your energy in one direction, you can accomplish something very quickly. And the 8 of Wands is all about speed and accomplishing something quickly. We have the 7 of Wands. 7 of Wands is super interesting. He has a boot and a shoe on, or 2 different shoes, whichever you prefer. And the story of the 7 of Wands is that he had to rush out of his house and try to get something done or accomplish something very quickly, and he didn't have enough time to accomplish it, or he didn't have enough time to prepare. So sometimes I feel the 7 of Wands in a reading is coming up when a person wants to do something or has to do something, but they might not really feel prepared or ready to go on their journey, or they might not feel prepared for what they're about to do, but they have to do it anyway. So it kind of is one of those cards that says you're as ready as you're going to be at this time. Next, we have the 6 of Wands, and of course the 6 of Wands is a card of a victory or success. Again, he's sitting on this white horse, so he has received assistance, or he has been assisted on his journey. I think of the 6 of Wands as kind of coming back from war, or he is coming back from a difficult period of time where he's been through some challenges, but now he's being celebrated after those challenges. Something that always stands out to me is this person right here, if I can get my finger in the right position here. This person is meant to look jealous, and so sometimes the 6 of Wands can also represent ignoring jealous people, or anyone trying to cause problems. You have the 5 of Wands, and the 5 of Wands can represent conflict or competition. Really, these people are using sticks to fight. They're not using swords. So I look at the 5 of Wands as a card that really says that these people are training, or they are learning how to deal with competition. Sometimes I think this is a good card, in a reading, if you're doing a reading for a person, where they should look at what they are not doing in their life. It's kind of, it says, don't compare yourself to the competition, but just, use the competition as an example and experiment with what the competition is doing that you're not doing in your own life. And again, if you're reading for a person, sometimes I think, that's a great thing to think about with the 5 of Wands. Next, we have the Four Wands, of course, marriage, but I look at the Four Wands as a card of completion, and it is a card of completion. The Four Wands can come up frequently when we either are about to or we have completed some sort of project. These people are celebrating on the other side of these Four Wands here, and so it kind of is a portal card. It says that we have to cross through a portal, a threshold. We have to complete something before we can have the celebration. So it can absolutely represent a commitment. Obviously, if you're reading for a person about love and they get the Four Wands, then no doubt about it, could absolutely be marriage. But if you're reading for a person about like business or work or something else, this could be them committing to something new, like a new project or a new direction that they're thinking about going in, and that new direction could lead to a celebration as well. Next, we have the Three of Wands. Three of Wands is basically your ships coming in, but I kind of look at the Three of Wands as a card of what are you waiting for. The most important thing to me with the Three of Wands is that the true story of the Three of Wands is that he's looking out at that water, but the water is golden in color, and it kind of maybe looks like the desert to him at first. So he thinks he's looking at something where nothing can grow. But when he looks closer, he sees those ships and he realizes that he is looking at the water, and he realizes there's actually this huge opportunity in front of him. So I have seen, again, in the many years that I've been reading now, the Three of Wands comes up when someone is looking at an opportunity, but they don't really actually see the full potential or how expansive the opportunity could be. A great example I can give you is that one time I was reading for a person and they had a job offer, but they didn't really want the job, but they were looking for, something else and everything like that. But when I get the Three of Wands, I told that person, maybe this job offer isn't the best, but what is it going to lead to after you get this job, right? So sometimes the Three of Wands and the threes in general, can kind of represent stepping stones, or the Three of Wands itself can be kind of like a stepping stone situation where a person's going on a journey. Maybe they're getting a different job, or, maybe they're getting out and dating. It's like, obviously they're not going to marry every single person that they're going on a date with, but eventually on the journey, on the adventure is the opportunity. So the opportunity with the Three of Wands is going on the adventure. Also, you have the Two of Wands, and the Two of Wands is kind of similar. The story of the Two of Wands is that he rushed to a finish line. He's standing at the top of his castle, but he has the whole world in his hands, and he needs to get out into the world. He thinks he knows everything, but really there's so much more for him to experience. So the Two of Wands can be a card of taking the lead. And again, we are going to do another video where I cover each card, the actual meaning of each card. I'm just pointing out, again, if you're jumping in here late, I'm pointing out the most important parts or the most important imagery of each card. And I would say two things here. Probably the wand right here. The wand says his past is his past. He's completed one stage of his journey, and now he's reaching forward to this new wand, and he needs to take action. Again, wands cards are action, so he needs to take action on something new, or he needs to move in a new direction. This is also a comfort zone card. He has his little village down here below, and that village is where he is from, but he's in his comfort zone, so he needs to take the lead and leave a comfort zone to get something great. Finally, I realize now that I went backwards, so I'm actually going to flip the deck over so we can go the right direction, but I probably should have gone from Ace to the King. But you have the Ace of Wands here, and the Ace of Wands is out with the old, in with the new. The only thing I think people miss is this castle. The castle in the background is meant to look like it's crumbling, and it kind of represents out with the old, in with the new. So the Ace of Wands pretty much comes up when we're about to have a new beginning, or when we need to have some sort of new beginning. And I feel like the Ace of Wands is just out with the old, in with the new. I also look at the Ace of Wands as just a spark, a spark of hope, spark of inspiration. We have to build the fire with the Ace of Wands, and we have to keep that fire going or growing so that we can kind of keep the passion going with something. So the Ace of Wands is like just the very beginnings of starting something or needing to get started on something you desire to do, but you have to kind of like keep that fire going with the Ace of Wands. Next, we're going to do the Pentacles, and we have the Ace of Pentacles. Pentacles, of course, are wealth, money, resourcefulness, things like that. And the Ace of Pentacles is just an opportunity. So to me, the Ace of Pentacles, the most important thing is this garden that's right here. With the Ace of Pentacles, usually we are presented with an opportunity that we need to nurture. We need to water it, fertilize it, feed it, and sorry, I have the hiccups, and all that other stuff because there's this garden at the front of the card. So I always pay attention to that. We also have some mountains in the background here underneath that archway. And the mountains kind of say, again, just like on the moon card, sometimes no matter what, we have to go through something difficult to accomplish something great. It's not that it's going to be painful or, super challenging or anything, but sometimes when we start a journey, we do have to, again, pay attention to the challenges and push through those things, because something we're going to do, it's going to be successful, but not necessarily easy. Next, we have the Two of Pentacles. Two of Pentacles is a card of juggling and spinning plates. I think something people think about a lot is the boats. To me, the boats just talk about exactly what it looks like there. The waves go from really tiny to much bigger as you move across the card. And the whole point is kind of like the waves of the ocean, right? Like things go up and down. You're kind of juggling things like he is there. With the Two of Pentacles, sometimes I think that it would be better for him to focus on one thing and accomplish that one thing instead of like juggling and trying to do too much at once. So it can be a card of trying to do too much at once. Although one thing I will say is that in readings, I have noticed that it's like sometimes the Two of Pentacles might come up when a person has no choice but other than to juggle, right? And so he has this hat on, and it can say that in those moments where you cannot juggle, it's like put on one hat at a time. Accomplish one thing and then do the next and then do the next. And so, that's what I think of with the Two of Pentacles. Next, we have the Three of Pentacles, which of course is a card of teamwork. There are a bunch of things that always stand out to me with the Three of Pentacles. This is a fire triangle. This right here is a water triangle. And the water triangle on the Three of Pentacles kind of says that he put a little bit extra into the project. He went a little bit above and beyond and put his imagination into what he was working on. So if you're reading for a person who's like working on a project or trying to get a raise or promotion or something like that, the Three of Pentacles can say that, well, can say a lot of things really, but it can say that maybe they need to put like a little extra flair into whatever they're doing, or a little bit more of their imagination. Same thing with a business as well. It says that instead of being too cookie cutter and only doing what is required, a little bit extra can go a long way. We also have this lady who has polka dots on her cloak. And the polka dots in the tarot can represent taking things too seriously. So sometimes I feel with the Three of Pentacles, it can come up when we're taking things too seriously. You have next the Four of Pentacles. The Four of Pentacles, of course, he is holding on too tightly to the past, and he needs to open up. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen that meme where there's like a little girl who's holding on to a teddy bear, and God is standing in front of her, and he's got like a gigantic teddy bear behind her back. And I don't remember what the meme says, but it basically says that sometimes we hold on to things when what God wants for us is more, right? And that's what I always, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember actually what it says, but that's what I think of with the Four of Pentacles. It's like sometimes we're holding on to something that we think we really want, but there might be something better if we open up and release what we are holding on to. So I think the Four of Pentacles is always about releasing. One thing I always say as well is that he has this pentacle here and this pentacle here. And when my favorite person of all time, Greg Braden, says, when your head and your heart become one, you can move mountains. So sometimes the Four of Pentacles, it will come up in a reading, and I think that the person I'm reading for needs to get into alignment, or they need to align their head and their heart at the with the same thing. And if they do that, they can actually move any obstacle that's in their way. Next, we have the Five of Pentacles. Again, these two people are left out in the cold. And the Five of Pentacles is very specific. I always say the fives have very easy solutions, and the solution to the Five of Pentacles is two. They can either go inside the church right here. The church represents a place of sanctuary, and so they can go inside that church and they can find sanctuary, or they can stop calling attention to their situation. This guy here, he has this bell around his neck, and back in the day, lepers used to have to wear bells around their necks so people knew when they were coming down the street. And so the whole point of it is to not call attention to your weaknesses and to double down on your strengths. Next, we have the Six of Pentacles, one of my favorite cards. I look at the Six of Pentacles as planting seeds. And you can see here some of the imagery. This right here, this guy has like something in his back pocket. And in the US at least, we have a saying like someone has something in their back pocket, meaning they're looking for a handout or they're asking for something, but they have ulterior motives. So sometimes I feel that the Six of Pentacles can come up in a reading where a person is dealing with another person who has other motives. Like they mean one thing, but they're really asking for another, right? And so that can be the Six of Pentacles. The Six of Pentacles, he is also choosing who to give to, so he has a good understanding of people who have ulterior motives, and he understands giving to the right things. But he's also holding this balance here, and the balance represents equal give and take, so he only invests in things where he gets something back, where there's at least a return of energy. Next, we have the Seven of Pentacles. Of course, my Is the Juice Worth the Squeeze card. He's looking at those 7 pentacles that he has grown in front of him, and he's saying to himself, was it worth it, or is it worth it, or is there something better that I could be doing? So he's asking the question because he's already grown those pentacles. He's already learned what he can from that situation, and he's thinking he might want to maybe pick up this one pentacle and go grow something else. So he understands that he's gained the knowledge, but now he needs to take action and potentially grow something differently in his life. This is also a great card for analysis. So another thing I think people forget is that he's analyzing what he's grown, and he's looking at what he's grown, and he's saying like, okay, this worked, but this didn't. Like he's kind of sorting through things, and he's making sure the next time that he grows his pentacles, he's going to get rid of the things again that didn't work, and he's going to make sure to do the things that he has analyzed that definitely do work, and he's going to focus on that. Next, we have the Eight of Pentacles. Eight of Pentacles is a card of mastery or mastering a craft. He is almost done, and he only has one more pentacle to create. Kind of what stands out to me, usually the most important thing I think about with the Eight of Pentacles is that he is just like head down, nose to the grindstone. He's just putting in the work into those 8 pentacles, but maybe he needs to pause and like look up at what he has accomplished. So I personally look at the Eight of Pentacles as a card of perspective sometimes. Like sometimes I think we have to gain perspective on what we have accomplished. And then when we put things into perspective, it immediately makes anything else that we're about to work on look much, much easier. Because sometimes we think, oh, I want to go start this other project or do this other thing. But we think, oh, I'm not going to be able to do it. But if you really look at everything that you have accomplished in your life, then it immediately becomes easier because you'll say to yourself, oh, I've actually done things that are a lot harder. Next, we have the Nine of Pentacles. The Nine of Pentacles has a lot of great imagery as well. She has this snail right here, and snails wear their homes on their backs. So I always look at the Nine of Pentacles as creating an environment of success. If you get this card in a reading for a person who has like a business, for example, or who wants to grow in their career, they could simplify things or make things easier. Like I used to have to turn everything on in my office to get everything going. In my old setup, I used to just have to hit one button and everything would turn on. Now I have a much more simple setup, which does everything the last setup did, right? And I still only have to turn one button on, but even I created a better environment of success by simplifying. I only have 2 things now in the computer that basically run everything in my office, so it's much, much simpler, and that's what I think of with the Nine of Pentacles. She also has this falcon right here, and the falcon can represent your focus. She is training her focus so that she focuses on the right things. She also has these grapes behind her. Grapes in the tarot are meant to represent something that is difficult or challenging to grow, but she can do it well. So if you're reading for a person, this could say that they have a skill that could create a lot of wealth for them if they use a skill, but it could be like a difficult skill, or it could be something, sometimes, again, you'll be reading for a person, and they might not know that they are good at doing something because it comes naturally to them. So sometimes I feel the Nine of Pentacles is a card of the natural, like as in the person is naturally good at something, and if something comes easily to you, you really don't feel like it's that special, but really she needs to realize how special her skills are. She also has 3 pentacles here and 6 over here, so she's willing to give 3 pentacles to any situation in her life, but she always keeps enough to herself. So I look at this as a percentage. It's not like an amount, right? She always gives just enough energy to help, people in her life or whatever she wants to do, but she always makes sure to kind of live in luxury and kind of give to herself first so that she has enough to give. You have the Ten of Pentacles. The Ten of Pentacles, of course, is ultimate wealth. It can represent luxury, abundance. It can represent inheritance. It can represent building or leaving a legacy, all those things. There is a little known meaning of the Ten of Pentacles, that this guy right here is actually a beggar, and he's coming to this family and he's giving them a gift. So he can represent a person who has nothing to give, who is giving something, to this family. And so on a personal level, or when you're doing a reading for a person, if you get like a lot of secret cards, for example, or if the person is asking about information, the Ten of Pentacles is a card of research. It says that the person needs to look for the answers that they're looking for through research, but it might come from an unlikely source. So the Ten of Pentacles could be like, for example, like I've watched movies before, for example, where I get an answer to something that I've been thinking about, right? Or to a problem or to a business idea or whatever. So the Ten of Pentacles can say that the answers that they are looking for exist, but they have to be open to those answers all over the place. And that's that's where they will get their wealth. And wealth does not have to be money. It could be anything. It is a Pentacle card, which would be money, but still. Next, we have the Page of Pentacles. Page of Pentacles is learning something new, and so he is a card of studiousness, and I just look at him as learning something new. Something I think that people forget about the Page of Pentacles as well is that he can be a messenger. I think we think of, the knights as messengers for the most part, but sometimes the Page of Pentacles can represent like receiving a letter. Same thing with the Ace of Pentacles as well. I have seen how the Ace of Pentacles can be like approval, a letter of approval, or receiving communication or something like that. Same thing with the Page of Pentacles. He can also represent receiving communication. Next, we have the Knight of Pentacles. The Knight of Pentacles, the most interesting thing about him is he's the only knight in the tarot that isn't moving, and so he can represent playing it too safe or being too cautious or not making moves. And he has these empty fields behind him. He also has these oak leaves on his helmet here, and the oak leaves represent knowledge and wisdom. So the whole entire card, and the horse also has oak leaves on it as well. And so the whole entire card says that he has everything he needs. He has all the knowledge and wisdom necessary to get started on something, planting seeds in this field. All he has to do is go and do it, and if he does it, he will be successful. So, he kind of represents needing to get started. Again, trust your intuition on this. We are going to have some videos up about building your intuition and all that, but what I would say is sometimes I feel like he is making progress. So the Knight of Pentacles can represent progress, and again, you're going to have to trust your intuition on that one. We'll probably talk about this in a future video as well. When I read, I take the whole entire reading into account. So I look at every single card that is in front of me. So if we had like the Knight of Pentacles with like the Emperor, the Ace of Wands, and something else like the Eight of Wands, I would be like, okay, he clearly, the person I'm reading for is making progress because all the cards around it would represent progress. Next, we have the Queen of Pentacles. She is a card of resourcefulness and being resourceful. So I feel for a lot of you, or for here I'm in reading mode now. But really, when you're reading for a person, this can represent them needing to focus on their resources. She's focused on the pentacle. She's not focusing on the rabbit, and the rabbit can represent fears and anxiety. So instead of focusing on fear and anxiety, she's focusing on what she does have and what she can do. She would also be resourceful. So she does things without necessarily needing the money or without necessarily needing the resources. Again, she uses whatever she has at her disposal. Next, we have the King of Pentacles. Again, with the grapes, he has a skill that increases his wealth. And I always think of the King of Pentacles as the card of wealth and building wealth. So he is great at, kind of building or creating wealth in his life. And he does it with his skills. Next, we're going to move on to the swords cards, and the swords cards represent like our intellect, our thoughts, the things that we're thinking about, our mindset, things like that. And we have the Ace of Swords. The Ace of Swords, probably the most important thing here is, well, there's actually a couple. There's a palm frond right here, and there's an olive branch over here. The palm frond and the olive branch represent, palm frond is a sacrifice. The olive branch can be an offer of peace, but it can also represent abundance as well. So the sword cuts both ways. It's sharp on both sides. And the Ace of Swords can represent, cutting one thing out so you can have something else. We also have the 6 golden yods here. And the 6 golden yods just represent the balance of the sword. It is in perfect balance. So we have to cut one thing out so we can make space for something else. Balance, right? It's also above the mountains here, and the sword above the mountains kind of represents the fact that we will always have obstacles in life, but the Ace of Swords, when it comes up, it encourages the person you're reading for to always overcome the obstacles that they are facing. And of course, there's more that goes into this. Again, if you're just jumping in here, we're going to have a separate video where we cover each card, exactly what it means. Next, we have the Two of Swords. The Two of Swords is my card of third place solutions, and everybody thinks of her as a card of kind of trying to find a middle ground or negotiating her situation. Sometimes I feel the Two of Swords is a card of mediation, like two sides coming together and coming to an agreement. So I've seen that happen in readings before. But really, she has this new island behind her, and she is not trusting her intuition or looking at that new island. So that new island could represent something new that she's never experienced before. And sometimes I think with the Two of Swords, we have to let our guard down and open up to new possibilities and take the blindfold off so we can see it. The story of the Two of Swords is that she's an initiate. She's being initiated into like a secret society or something like that. But again, I really look at it as a card of her her needing to get to this new island. Even the rocks in the water can say that she is fearing getting hurt by the rocks, but if she takes her blindfold off, she would see that the water is at low tide and she can easily walk across it and that she won't get hurt again. So again, even the water can represent her emotions. She might be fearing entering into something emotionally, but if she takes her blindfold off, again, and she opens up, she will see the things that she didn't see the first time. She'll be able to avoid them, and she'll get to the other side. So sometimes, like, this card can come up when someone's asking about a relationship. It's like they want to open up, but they don't, but they should. And if they do open up, and as long as they're paying attention to what they experienced in the past and avoiding the mistakes, then they will get to something new that's completely different. Next, we have the Three of Swords, probably one of the most misunderstood cards in the tarot, I would argue. A lot of people look at this as heartbreak or a breakup, and it can totally come up after one of those things happens in your life. But the Three of Swords is really a card of forgiveness. Again, those swords are your own thoughts, your own intellect, your own truth, the things that belong to you. And so we have to remove those swords from our own heart so that we can heal. And the Three of Swords is really a card of healing or going through a healing. Next, we have the Four of Swords. Again, a lot of people miss the stained glass window. He is hoping or praying for blessings. There's a person blessing another person in that stained glass window. And to me, that's the most interesting thing about the Four of Swords. There you go. Next, we have the Five of Swords. The Five of Swords can represent winning at all cost. It can represent conflict or kind of like a battle or going through a breakup even as well. I look at the Five of Swords as there is a theory that this is the same guy. All three versions right there, it's all the same person, even though they have different color hair, right? And so the theory is that this represents the fact that he has learned how to win a battle. He has learned how to walk away. In the first stage here, he is crying because he lost. In the second stage, he's kind of like learned how to walk away, kind of. In the last stage, he is taking these swords with him. And again, the swords can represent lessons or things that he's learned on his journey or through his battle. So he is walking away from the battle, and even if he has lost, he is still bringing forward the lesson. So he is kind of taking with him what he has learned. And, a lot of times I feel with the Five of Swords that it can actually represent learning how to lose, like learning how to walk away from something that isn't working in your life. And you're not really losing, you are just, kind of taking the lessons forward with you. Same thing with the Six of Swords. On the Six of Swords, we have this woman and the child. The Six of Swords represents completely moving on. They are completely starting over. They're leaving everything in the past behind them, and they have nothing with them but the clothing on their back, and they are also bringing the swords, and the swords, again, represent the lessons, the experiences, the things that they learned in the past, and now they're moving forward to hopefully calmer shores, but they are still sitting in these choppy waters. The Six of Swords, another important thing about this card is the guide in the back of the boat. The ferryman, he goes back and forth between the choppy waters, and he just represents the fact that sometimes when you're reading for a person, that you can tell them, that they're being guided across these waters. They are being protected, or they are kind of being shown the way on whatever journey they're making. Next, we have the Seven of Swords, another very misunderstood card. Most people read it as lying, cheating, stealing. But traditionally, the golden cards in the tarot are meant to be positive no matter what. So most people read this as a negative card, even though it's meant to be a positive card. And we'll talk about that, but really what's important here is that he is stealing these swords from this army in the background so that they can't be used against him in battle. The Seven of Swords always says to me that there's a better way to do whatever you're doing in your life. So if you're reading for a person and they're trying to do anything, and this card comes up and it's not a love reading, then I would say there's probably something or a different way or a different approach to whatever challenge they're facing that would be better, that would be more successful. He also has these polka dots on his cloak, and the polka dots again can come up when a person is taking things too seriously in their life, and it represents not needing to not take things too seriously. He's carrying those swords by their tips, and again, it kind of represents the fact that he's doing something where he has to be delicate, because he can't obviously run carrying those swords by their tips. So it can represent, sometimes like I've seen the Seven of Swords come up when a person is maybe starting a project or starting something new in their life, and they're kind of working on all those little fine details, or maybe they need to make sure they don't get in a trap. Like if they're starting a business, for example, maybe they need to make sure they have their, like a license if they need a license, or maybe they need to make sure to have the appropriate legal documents on their website or something like that. So a lot goes in to the Seven of Swords. Again, put your thinking cap on, and again, it's going to depend on what you're reading about. But I always think of that with the Seven of Swords, that if a person's asking me about their business and this card comes up, I might say, hey, maybe you need to make sure that you have a license for doing whatever you're doing, or you need to make sure to do things the right way. And he kind of needs to make sure to do things the right way. Next, we have the Eight of Swords. This lady is surrounded by swords, but she doesn't have any swords behind her or in front of her. She could easily set herself free. The most important thing here, she's standing in this water, or I don't know if it's the most important, but the thing that always stands out to me is she's standing in that shallow pool of water, and it kind of says that she might be making a bigger deal out of her situation than it actually is. The shallow pool of water represents shallow emotions, and so she is kind of, again, making something out to be more than it actually is. The other thing is the Eight of Swords kind of represents the fact that a person might be only seeing one way of doing things, like she is trapped, and so she thinks she's stuck. But if she actually looks and takes her blindfold off, she will see that there are many ways that she can do anything that she wants to do. Next, we have the Nine of Swords. Nine of Swords is a never-ending nightmare. Most important here is this blanket. The blanket kind of represents a comfort blanket, so you could read it a couple ways. Number one, he is too comfortable. So sometimes we get stuck in pain and we don't leave the painful situation because it's familiar to us. So again, he needs to leave a comfort zone of pain. Even though he's in pain, it might not be painful enough for him to make a change. We also have this carving here. In this carving, there is a person hitting another person with a sword. So I always look at this card as you can be the bug or the windshield. You can be the immovable force, or you can be the one that's getting hit by the immovable force. Nine of Swords is kind of a choice. We can stay stuck, or we can do something to set ourselves free. Next, we have the Ten of Swords. I think what people miss about this card is this symbol right here. He's making the symbol with his hands that represents a blessing, and it's the same symbol the Hierophant is making on his card. And so I look at the Ten of Swords sometimes as a blessing in disguise. Yes, it can represent death or victimhood or hitting rock bottom, but sometimes something dying or being removed from our life can free us up to do other things, and the Ten of Swords really is about that freedom that we gain when something dies. Next, we have the Page of Swords. I look at the Page of Swords as a card of curiosity and being curious about the future, so that's pretty much all that stands out to me about the Page of Swords. I look at him as needing to be curious. Next, we have the Knight of Swords. Again, I think what people miss about the Knight of Swords is that this horse, it looks very stressed out. And so he is forcing that horse to do something. And I look at this card as a card of being too hasty and moving too quickly and not thinking things through and trying to force something to work instead of allowing something to work. So that's what stands out to me there. Next, we have the Queen of Swords. What stands out to me about the Queen of Swords is the fact that her back, whenever you have her on the table, right down on the table, her back is always to the past. And so she is letting go of the past, or she is only focused on the future. These clouds are halfway up her body, so she is kind of like seeing things clearly, or seeing the future clearly for the first time. So I look at her as a card of great clarity. She also has her sword up and her hand out. And it kind of says that she's willing to receive something into her life, but she will chop anything's head off that comes her way that doesn't come correct, right? So she needs to, she only accepts things into her life that are coming correct. Next, we have the King of Swords. I just look at him as the card of knowledge and wisdom, and also the card of maturity. One other thing that I get from him, again, not accurate tarot, but just more me, I would say, is I look at him as the king that's been through the most battles. So he understands difficulty and challenge, and that's where he gains his knowledge and wisdom. I also look at him as needing to practice knowledge. You can learn something all day long, but when you get the knowledge of what you are learning, that means you actually put into practice the things you learned. That's when you really become successful. It's like I always use the example you can learn Spanish all day long, right? But if you go to a Spanish-speaking country, they're going to have certain like cultural idioms. They're going to have certain slang words. They're going to have certain things that they say that are different even from country to country, right? And that you won't learn unless you take what you learned and then you go to a Spanish-speaking country and implement what you learned, right? So he kind of represents taking the knowledge, putting it into practice. Finally, here we're on to the Cups cards. The Cups cards represent, of course, love or our emotional state or our emotions. So we start with the Ace of Cups. The Ace of Cups is about your emotions overflowing, and you can see this hand reaching out and the cup is overflowing. There's this dove that is dropping the Eucharist into the cup. Sometimes I think with the Ace of Cups that this right here represents some sort of action. We have to take an action to cause that cup to overflow and to basically drop the Eucharist into the cup. So sometimes this can represent needing to accept an emotional offer in your life so that you can have it. The W on the card is believed to represent west, and even the dove is shaped like a W as well. So just a little fun fact for you. Next, we have the Two of Cups. The thing that stands out to me, as always with the Two of Cups, is that these two people look very different, so they can represent two people who come from two totally different worlds. We also have the Staff of Hermes right here, and the Staff of Hermes is Mercury, which represents communication, so these two usually have great communication. There is one warning with this card, which is the Lion, and the Lion can represent a person who has an ego. Of course, if this comes up in a positive reading, where all the cards together are positive, then it would say that these two have a balanced ego, and maybe their egos balance each other out. So it can actually represent a great connection. In the negative, it can represent one person having too big of an ego, and that could be what's causing problems. So again, you're going to have to take it, the person you're reading for is going to have to take it how it resonates, or you're going to have to look at the reading, and if a person's asking you about a relationship and this card comes up, maybe there are ego problems if there are problems in the connection. Next, we have the Three of Cups. These three ladies are celebrating the harvest that is growing around them here, and so they are having a celebration and they are just, partying. I look at the Three of Cups as a card of community as well, so sometimes it can represent working together with people in your life or kind of getting the help of your community. Next, we have the Four of Cups. The Four of Cups is a card of contemplation and apathy. You'll hear some people say it's a card of thinking the grass is greener on the other side, which is definitely could be true, because he's accepted these offers, and now he's getting another offer coming out of this cloud. He's getting like another emotional offer, but maybe because he always thinks the grass is greener, he's always looking for something more, and he isn't being satisfied with what he has received. I intuitively feel that the Four of Cups is meant to represent mixing all these cups together. So again, this is me, not accurate tarot. Take it or leave it. But I feel that he is trying to manifest something that will make him feel fulfilled in his life, and he thinks he doesn't have what he needs, but really he has all the ingredients necessary to make something very successful in his life. He just needs to mix those ingredients together so that he can have something great. Next, we have the Five of Cups. The story of the Five of Cups is that he's grieving the loss of spilt wine in front of him. He doesn't enjoy the taste of wine any longer, and he's disappointed because he feels like he's never going to find enjoyment again. But really, if he turns around, he sees these two cups, and he'll also get this bridge in this castle over here. So the Five of Cups, again, fives have very easy solutions. The solution to this card is to be grateful for what you do have, and to when you do that, then you get more. And sorry, my dog's barking at someone. But so again, that's what this card can represent. Next, we have the Six of Cups. The Six of Cups can represent innocence and nostalgia. You can see these two children are being guarded by this guard over here inside this courtyard in a castle. So this card can represent protecting your inner child, or needing to embrace your inner child, or needing to use your inner child more, or needing to even tap in to your inner child. And so I always look at the Six of Cups like, yeah, sure, it can represent thinking about the past, but it really represents tapping into that inner childlike energy and being more playful and having more fun. Again, another meaning that I give this card, and this is coming from me, not from Accurate Tarot, is that the Six of Cups can be a gift from the universe. And I have known and seen that the Six of Cups will come up when a person is either about to kind of have a breakthrough, or they're about to experience a turnaround in their life. Again, this is just my meaning. It's, take it or leave it, but there you go. Next, we have the Seven of Cups. The Seven of Cups is about being spoiled for choice. the thing that always stands out to me with this card is that there are good things and bad things in these cups, but he is kind of just imagining something that he needs to bring down to earth. Before we do anything great, people always do this. They think about all the bad things that could happen before they do it. But really, the Seven of Cups says, well, actually the thing that you're thinking about, you don't really know what the outcome is going to be until you do it, right? So I always look at the Seven of Cups as needing to bring that dream down to earth. Next, we have the Eight of Cups. The Eight of Cups is the only card that has an eclipse on it right here. Some people say that the moon is a full moon eclipse. I don't think so, but whatever. If that's what it means to you, that's what it means to you. The Eight of Cups is about walking away from these 8 cups, and he's walking away because those cups do not fulfill him. He does not have true fulfillment here. So instead of settling on his situation, he is choosing to eclipse it out of his life and walk in a new direction. Next, we have the Nine of Cups. The most interesting thing to me about the Nine of Cups is that he has these 9 cups behind him, and there is another theory that he is actually a barkeep, and he is the one who is deciding who to give his emotions out to. So most people think of this as a card of wish fulfillment or just fulfillment in general, which can definitely be true, but it could also say that he is being fulfilled because he is choosing who he gives his energy to. The way that I like to read this card is that he is meant to look chubby because he's about to have a feast, and so it kind of says that he is chubby because he's had a feast before and he's about to have another one. So it basically says that he is in alignment with exactly what he wants, and that's why he's getting his wish, because he has had something before. So to have something great, we have to have it before we can have it. People always say to me, how the hell is that possible, right? So if you want love, you have to be in love with something yourself before you can have love. If you want money, you have to love money. You have to be in abundance before you can have abundance. My advice when I'm reading for people is always that the Nine of Cups is a card of habits, and so you should adopt a habit, or the person you're reading for might need to adopt a habit of having something or doing something, or adopt the habits of success is what I'm trying to say here. So that's the Nine of Cups. Next, we have the Ten of Cups. Ten of Cups is fortune after difficulty, or everything you want and desire in your life. These people are celebrating, and the most interesting part to me about the Ten of Cups is that they are standing in the real world. So they still have to deal with the real world problems and issues and things that are going on in their life. But, they are choosing to be happy. They are choosing to focus on the things that make them happy no matter what is going on in the world. So they are bringing light to the world. And that's what I always think of with the Ten of Cups. Of course, it means happy home, happy family. Again, let me know down below. We will do, probably, if people want it, another video of the actual meaning of all the cards. I'm just pointing out the things that really stand out to me in each one of these cards. Next, we have the Page of Cups. Of course, the admirer, the lover, the person with imagination. The thing that stands out to me always is the fish. He has that fish in that cup, but that fish might not exist. It might be part of his imagination, and he needs to grab onto that fish and bring it down to earth. So, even if you're reading for a person and they're not asking about love, this could say that they have a dream that they need to bring down to earth, and they need to make sure that that dream doesn't escape into the water, and that's what stands out to me. Next, we have the Knight of Cups. Knight of Cups, of course, knight in shining armor, but he's standing in front of this water in the desert. And if he plants seeds in front of that water, they will grow. So sometimes I feel the Knight of Cups can represent a person who has a dream, but they maybe feel like they don't have the resources or the time or the effort or whatever the case may be. But if they put the work in, they will actually be able to manifest what they desire. But they have to plant seeds no matter what is going on around them, or no matter what resources they can see in front of them. Next, we have the Queen of Cups. She has this big cup. It almost looks like a trophy, and that's what stands out to me about her. The cup kind of represents her heart, and she is a card of really following your heart and listening to your heart. So that's the Queen of Cups. And finally, we made it to the end here. We have the King of Cups. And the King of Cups, he has this boat over here, and the boat represents a time where our ancestors would get on boats and they wouldn't know where they were going. So the boat can actually say that the King of Cups is a little bit of an adventurer, or he is needing or is going on an adventure and exploring the unknown. And he has explored his emotions to a very deep level. He's sitting in the middle of the ocean, but he is perfectly fine. So he is very in control of his emotions, and that's the whole point of the King of Cups. He even has this is meant to be a whale. It looks like a fish, But the whale kind of says also that he has explored his emotions to a very deep level, and now he needs to kind of operate from that emotional space where he's explored his emotions. He's sitting on like this concrete slab in the middle of the ocean as well. So again, it's talking about his emotional stability, or the fact that he is a very emotionally stable person. So that's that. We did all 78 cards. So thank you for being here. Again, if you're interested, we have a course down below that goes more in depth into tarot. Also, please feel free to leave feedback if you want the actual meanings of all the cards. Maybe we can set that up together, and yeah, we'll see where this goes.